Good evening, visitors, and welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Sharon Bown, and joining us this evening from the Royal Australian Air Force is Flight Sergeant Gary Nydert. We are honoured to acknowledge the Honourable Mr. Kim Beazley, Chair of the Council of the Australian War Memorial, and Mr. Peter Woolcott, Commissioner of the Australian Public Service. We are also honoured to acknowledge Major General Paula Lodi, United States Army 18th Medical Command, accompanied by Brigadier Isaac Seidel, Director General, Operational Health, Joint Health Command, and their accompanying delegation. We welcome the veterans who have served, those who continue to serve, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome all members who are watching this broadcast across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors to the memorial and by students on behalf of the Furbank Grammar School from Brighton in Victoria. If you are able, would you now please stand and join in singing the National Anthem? Students, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Private Norman Martin Theodore Appelt. Norman Appelt was born on the 14th of March 1919 in Udunda, South Australia, one of 7 children born to Lutheran minister William Appelt and his wife Concordia. Norman spent much of his childhood in the small community of Trungley Hall near Temora in the New South Wales, where his father was the Reverend at the Lutheran Church. A small Lutheran school operated across the road from the local church and the manse where Norman and his family lived. After completing his schooling, he took up employment as a labourer, working for a local farmer nearby. He later moved to the town of Henty, where he continued to work as a labourer with the hopes of one day owning his own farm. Norman enlisted in the Australian Imperial Forces at Wagga Wagga on the 27th of August 1940. He began his training at the local army camp and was appointed Lance Corporal 2 months later. He was granted a period of leave before embarking for active service, during which he returned to Henty and married Ellen Ida Hacknell at St John's Lutheran Church on the 28th of December 1940. In February the following year, Lance Corporal Appelt left Wagga Wagga and travelled to Tamworth, where he received further training. He embarked from Sydney as a member of the reinforcements 2 months later on the 9th of April 1941. Appelt arrived in the Middle East in early May and joined the 2nd 13th Battalion, part of the Australian 9th Division, which was besieged at the Libyan port of Tobruk. Appelt reverted to the rank of private and participated in the defence of the town. In August, he became ill and was sent to the 2nd 11th Australian General Hospital in Alexandria to recover. While he was convalescing, his wife Ellen went into labour with their first child, a boy named Barry, who was stillborn. Appelt's unit was the last to leave Tobruk, remaining until the siege was lifted on the 10th of December 1941. Appelt rejoined his comrades in Palestine in early 1942 as war continued in the north of Africa. By July 1942, Axis forces had reached the tiny railway stop of El Alamein, 100 kilometres from Alexandria, putting Cairo and the Suez Canal at risk. Appelt's unit held the northern sector near Tel El Issa for almost 4 months. In October, Appelt returned to his unit to El Alamein, where he took part in his last major battle of the war. Over several days, Allied units fought to secure their objectives in incredibly difficult terrain. By late October, Appelt's unit had reached an area at the front known as Fig Orchard. Having been exhausted through almost a week of fighting, the 2nd 13th was operating at less than a third of normal fighting strength. Its location also placed it at the edge of an extensive enemy minefield, laced with booby traps, which caused multiple casualties. At 11 a.m. on the 29th of October, Appelt's unit received orders to attack and end the battle. Its left flank was dangerously exposed as the 2nd 23rd Battalion had been unable to reach its objective, leaving it open to enemy fire. Appelt and his comrades were subject to a hailstorm of bullets and shells as they patrolled around Thompson's Post under constant danger from mines and traps. During this attack, Private Norman Appelt was killed in action. Though the Allies eventually succeeded in driving back the Axis forces, this came at a cost. The 9th Australian Division lost almost 6,000 casualties. When news of Appelt's death reached Australia, he was remembered as ambitious and highly respected by all with whom he came in contact. Private Norman Appelt was buried at the El Alamein War Cemetery beneath the inscription chosen by his grieving family, "For we must, through tribulation, enter the kingdom of heaven." He was 23 years old. His name is listed on the honour roll to my left amongst almost 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. A photograph of his headstone is displayed today by the Pool of Reflection. But this is one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Norman Martin Theodore Appelt, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall not grow old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support of the Memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening. Thank you.